Hello. Just woke up from a dreadful dream. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna make a clay video. This is already almost more than half reduced. In the water has evaporated out of most of it. And it's ice cold. And maybe I can let this dry today. And give the boyfriend of Queen Elizabeth a coat. I can make him a coat with this. That sounds like a plan. I'm gonna try to do that. So, but first I have to get that warm. Yeah, so I decided I'm gonna make a video right away because I was just talking to my husband about this dream that I had. It was awful terrible. I was walking down the streets in extreme despair and helplessness. I'm not going to get into the details why the helplessness. All I'm going to reveal now is that it has to do with my worries about other living beings. I was walking down the street and there were people and I was in such despair. I was crying and sobbing, and as we sometimes scream or sob in our dreams, we have this feeling the scream doesn't really come out. Or when we run, we seem to not really move forward because we are in actuality not screaming or moving forward. We're kind of like in sort of like a half paralysis. That's what happens usually when we sleep. The body is sort of put into a semi-paralysis. So we're not really moving our limbs. We move it a little bit like this. Some people do sleepwalking where this paralysis is shut off, and the body actually gets actual moving signals and doing signals, and that's very, very scary when that happens, because people have died because of sleepwalking. They would step out of their window in the 100th floor, or they would climb up on the roof. I don't know how they are capable of doing that, with such precision during sleepwalking. It's just, but those kind of things have happened several times in history. My mother used to sleepwalk. I have sleepwalked one time when we were on our travels in Connecticut when I was 15. That was the weirdest thing. We were in a house that was cut exactly in the same shape as my grandfather's house was cut in Germany. The same exact proportions, with the stairs in the exact same place, with the exact height, except everything. That's really, really, really bizarre and metaphysical. And so promptly, and I was sleeping also in the same bed, in the same room that I used to sleep at my grandfather's house. And so, yeah, naturally I thought I was at my grandfather's house. And then during sleep, and all of the rationality was shut off. And then the sleep paralysis was shut off, and my body started to move according to being in a somnambulistic trance or something. And so, yeah, so I started to walk out. I packed up, I put my pillow, the pillow that was actually belonged to those people. I stuffed that into my suitcase, and I tried to stuff the suitcase closed. My mother came out, was awake, and she got mad at me. What are you doing there? And I suddenly woke up and I said, I was sleepwalking. God, and it was a dream of despair. Just like last night, I wasn't sleepwalking, but the dream was of despair, and I know that I have tried to scream in my sleep. So, but it was just this hoarse, squeaky sound, I guess, that must have come out. This crying in this utter despair, walking down the street. And again, I felt like I was half nude, and I was covering my breasts like this. That's what I always do. I've dreamed about this last night too, that I was half naked or topless in public, and I don't know how I got there to that point, and it creates a panic in my body. So I cross over my breast like this, and it's like it's this utter total vulnerability, like being totally exposed and vulnerable to the public, and feels so helpless, and just like the child feels totally helpless and to the mercy of her caregivers, whoever these people are, you know. And often these caregivers are taking advantage when they are male. Yeah. Often, very often. These kind of perversions, these kind of neurotic escapes, they don't happen in animals, not to that degree. Okay, so that's why the human brain is really a tragic organ. It is tragic because people are themselves to the mercy of their urges and escape mechanisms, escape needs. And I'm trying to figure out how we can help with this. You know? So it's one thing I learned, that our brains are very different. You know? They're differently set up. First of all, women have a different brain than men have. Okay? Completely different brain. So right there, when someone is born with a female brain and a male body, what's going to happen? They're going to convert their body to female. And it's not their choice. It's not some kind of, oh, one day he's going to choose to become a woman. No, his brain is a woman. Okay? That's what the problem is. And that's what most people don't understand. And vice versa, in all kinds of different variations. And people that just don't, they have, and a lot of these things happen during the fetal development in the womb of the mother. When the mother has stress, at any point in time of fetal development, there can be all kinds of things wiring themselves in a completely wrong way, because the brain and the body of the fetus, of the embryo, is dependent on a balanced chemistry in the mother's womb. And if there is no balanced chemistry because the mother has too much stress, or eats the wrong food, or drinks alcohol, or does drugs, then all kinds of things can go wrong. Read the book by Dr. Arthur Janov, Early Imprints. He talks about this in detail, okay, but there's a whole other research groups that have come after him that have gone into the total depths of the neurochemistry of this and explained what happens. First time they came out with a study in '89, I remember this because that was when I graduated from the Abitur high school college in Germany, and the Psychology Today came out with that finding, and that was I think that was one of the first groups that found out that these kind of things, these kind of fetal developmental stagnations can actually cause, when that happens during the 3rd month of fetal development, that can cause anything from bisexuality to homosexuality to transgenderism, okay, or to hermaphroditism, any kind of thing in or anything in between, okay, from A to Z can go wrong there, okay. And then later people, they don't know why, they have no idea. They go, why is this happening to me, and why is this is a punishment, or they have to hide, they're terrified, and they think that it is their fault, they shouldn't be feeling that way because society puts that on them, and all of these things. And it's like the the amount of horrible things and feelings that are caused by a cold society, gay people that are committing suicide, all the time because of cold society that is ignorant in biology and all of this. And cold society, what they're doing to people in general, making older women feel like garbage, where they commit suicide in masses. It's often very sensitive people that the world needs that are committing suicide because they don't know how to cope with this. I feel terribly sorry for every woman who is 40 and plus. I feel terribly sorry because I know how that feels like, this being in front of the mirror and feeling like, okay, now it's over with everything. I was like, that kind of feeling. I know what that feels like. I know the fear of it. I know what people are doing to stay young, the amount of effort that is put into this, to avoid this rejection and this feeling ignored by society because they're old now. We need to listen to older people more than anyone else. Well, not every older person is very wise, but they have been around, and if they would just come clean with themselves instead of letting themselves fall prey to a neurotic society that forces their standards on you. Just introspect and go within yourself and forget about people. Forget about your coveting and needing and craving and wanting and eliciting from others. Forget about that. Go within yourself. And then you discover treasures, because your brain has already collected data all that time. And that is important data for other people. Okay? You need to share that in video form. That's what I'm doing, because I think those are treasures. Why throw those treasures away? Those mental treasures, the insights and the thoughts, and even if they're not insights, even if they are just bewilderment shared with other people, okay? Because I'm pretty sure that other people share this kind of bewilderment with you. Whatever bewilderment or puzzlement or being riddled, whatever that it may be, okay? Someone else is going to share that with you. Someone else will say, yeah, I have that too, and they will feel less alone in this cold world, ice cold world. And that's what my dream was about, this being vulnerable, being half naked, having to cover, walking down the street, feeling like I'm totally exposed now. It wouldn't matter what I do. I'm laughing stock, and these people around me, they're looking at me with cold horror, like, the cold horror in their faces, where there's no compassion whatsoever. They're standing there and they're staring at me out of fear instead of compassion. Instead of that, what I needed in that moment. So I needed someone to take me into her or his arms without sexual desire, without ulterior motives, and just hold me, and out of an act of kindness and compassion, hold me and say, don't worry, I'm here. I'm here, and I see you. I really see you. I see it when someone really sees me. I can see it. There was one in the other town where we have the other house. My husband and I, we were doing activism, and the one environmental lady introduced me to someone. His name was Jim, and he saw me. He saw me. Oh, that felt amazing. And we didn't talk about it, of course. We didn't talk about any of this. We just met. We were talking about the issues there at hand in the community that he was trying to help and fix. And he saw me. And it felt good, And that was beyond dating type of thing and hormones and all of this. No, he saw me. He saw my brain. Let's put it that way. And he recognized my brain, and he saw it, and it was totally beyond words. We were talking about the community, but his eyes revealed that he saw my suffering, my personal struggle with this, and my pain. He saw my pain. And I felt absolutely amazing, because that doesn't happen very often. That happens very rarely. That someone else sees my pain, My husband sees my pain too, of course, but he himself is so inundated, with his own worries all the time. He's constantly in the future, constantly, what if, he is so busy with this that he only hears a few things, and only those that would resonate with his type of suffering. He can't see beyond that and see me really in my suffering. Occasionally, when I'm completely down in the gutter, and I just sit there and cry and stare at the wall, then he'll get alerted, and he will be afraid that I might commit suicide or something. I mean, in the past, I'm not suicidal anymore. So, and if I was, I wouldn't admit it. Okay, so because I don't want the Gestapo come to my door. People who are suicidal, and I am really not suicidal. The videos are helping me. I'm going through this. Okay, it is like this. That's what life is all about. Hopefully not plunging all the way down, but that's sort of like a theta wave flow of life. You fall into a depression, you come back out. You learn as you go, going through that process. I have the heater under my table, which is great. It feels really good. Heat is warmth. It is amazing. I like my painting. My painting offers love to the world. So when I was walking down the street in my dream, I felt like there was nobody there. No one who saw me. They were all in their own fear of someone being different because they're afraid of themselves being different. That's what it really is. And immersed in that kind of fear of what other people think, they can only have fear towards someone who is in a different mental state or who acts differently in society in any way. And when they're in fear of that, they cannot feel compassion. And I noticed that in LA too. It was awful. I had a Jeep for about a year and a half or something that fell apart all the time. And it was terrible driving that Jeep. I finally sold it. And so I was driving up onto a parking lot where there was a health food store. And there was a car behind me honking the horn and shouting at me angry. And I was already depressed, and I just finally parked somewhere, and I had to cry because I needed to let this horrible pain energy, I needed to let that flow. And as I was sitting there, it was during the summertime, my window was also down because it was really warm. And I was sitting there crying at my steering wheel. And a guy comes over. Instead of being compassionate, he shouts at me and says, "What's the matter? Do I need to call an ambulance?" I looked at him, I said, "No, I'm just crying. There is no need for an ambulance." And he stomped away angrily. Angry because I was crying. See? I think we should introspect over these kind of things. Why would someone be angry at someone else crying? I mean, yes, you might go over and say, "Hey, can I help you? What's going on? Can I make you feel better? Can I get you a drink or tissues to blow your nose with? Or can I give you a hug?" That's what I do with people who cry. Of course, because I feel related. And I understand. But this guy comes over. Do I need to call an ambulance? It's like, what is going through someone's brain who act like this? I don't understand. That's too puzzling to me. My brain doesn't work that way. So I don't understand. So why is that, So whoever out there acts like this in public with people, what is it that causes you to act like this? To shout at someone who's crying, or to judge harshly when someone is in psychological distress? So what is it? What is it that causes you? I just have a theory about it. I know that Teal Swan, she's much more evolved with this. Much more. She sees the whole thing, including people who have deviant personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder and stuff. So she understands, she sees the whole thing, and she sees what drives them and all of. I can just theoretically follow. I can't really I can't really wrap my mind around this, how this can happen, that someone acts like this. And same in my dream, there were only people like this. They were harshly judging and in horror and in like disgusted and like ooh, like this, instead of having compassion. So, and I noticed that it's the majority of humans. And I'm not putting a judge hammer down and saying, yeah, you are all bad, whatever. That's not going to help anything. Okay, the behavior is not good, but it comes from somewhere. Okay, I mean, it's like it's driven by something. Okay, it is most likely driven by fear. Okay, what is that fear about? Is it the fear of being judged themselves? They're afraid to be judged. We see it very clearly in elementary schools. Okay, myself, for my own life, being in elementary schools, been in 2 different elementary schools. My parents took me out of one, put me into a worse one, thinking they would help. That's a better school, anthroposophy and so on. But it was actually worse, because there were entitled kids in that school, and the class was like 40 kids instead of 20 in the public school. So it was much worse in the Waldorf school. I would never send my child to a Waldorf school, ever. But my parents meant well, of course. But yeah, I couldn't handle either class. But I mean, the second one was so bad that I actually passed out during school breaks. So, but the the coldness in general among kids in elementary school age kids, between, I don't know, 6 and 10 or something, they are as cruel as it gets. I mean, it's like it hardly gets any more cruel or cold than that. It is really, really, it's brutal. They are brutal because, I mean, because they have brutal brains, and most humans have brutal brains. Okay? And they also haven't learned any kind of etiquette yet, or any kind of socially imposed limitations on what their mouth is going to say. So it's too bad that it has to be imposed with social limitations. What really needs to happen is that, and all of these kids are also, none of them has been seen ever by their parents. They think they already learned by the age of 6 that they better adapt or they're gonna be casted out. And so when they see a kid in the class that is not adapted in that way, they will go for that. They will mob that kid. They will fall all over her or him. They'll see, you drew a skeleton instead of a princess. You drew a skeleton with a princess dress. You dangerous. You outcast. You need to be bullied. That is what they're thinking. Okay. That's their mindset. They don't know any other way. Even in Germany, where we don't have religion, this is happening. And can you imagine what religion does? It puts gasoline into a fire in that regard. So they'll call a kid like myself the devil. If I had grown up in this country, I don't know if I'd be still alive. I don't know if I would have made it through childhood. So, but it was pretty brutal there too. They didn't bring religion into the picture, but they still have all kinds of Lutheran like unconscious school mechanisms woven into their brain structure, and all kinds of thou shalt not, this not, society demands this, and nothing ever gets questioned. Nothing ever gets questioned. A child can't question these things. That would have to be a mega genius child who questioned. My husband, he questioned these things already from age 9. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. I wasn't there yet for a long time. So for me, it was like I didn't question it. I didn't even think that I had the option of questioning this. You know, I started questioning these things. Maybe it started like at age 24, age 25. Really, at age 25 is when I had a breakthrough with when I started questioning stuff. That's also interestingly the age when the brain platelets grow together. So that's what I read. So when it's also when the hemispheres are becoming more connected or something. So which creates more clarity of mind and better thinking ability, better cognitive thinking. So suddenly has a huge leap forward in terms of abstract thinking and development of so-called spindle cells. Their spindle cells are recognized to be responsible and representative in the brain for cognitive thinking and abstract thought. And there are animals with spindle cells other than humans. So whales, dolphins, elephants, and some other animals. Yeah. People were very surprised when they found out. But so there's cognitive thinking going on. Yeah. Just because we don't speak their language, or they have a different jaw, or they can't produce our type of human words, but that doesn't mean that they're not thinking cognitively. They indeed are thinking cognitively. So even dogs think to a certain degree cognitively. To just a certain degree are able to do this. Some dogs more than others. So there are severe variations. Some dogs have gone backwards in evolution a little bit, and some have gone forward. So that's why there's this huge gap in cognitive ability among the different dog types, dog breeds. I don't like the word. Yeah. Different dog types. The Doberman are highly sensitive, for example. Highly sensitive. And greyhounds and whippets and all these real tender beings. These elfish dogs, very sensitive beings. They need to be kept warm. That they have extremely short hair and long legs and limbs. They need to be kept warm. They need to wear vests with padding and stuff like this. So yeah, and my dream was just a representation of my own experiences going through life and my observations of humans. That's why I was not able to give presentations in school. I talked about that in my video from yesterday that I made for my aunt and uncle. Coldness. I told my husband earlier, it is the coldness in the world goes straight back to a root cause. And that root cause, the total root basis of this cold behavior is fear of what other people might think of us, of each person. So the fear of social rejection stands behind all coldness in the world. And that's why my message to the world is dissolve that. Go into it. Go into it intellectually and emotionally. It's even more important. Go into it. Meditate on this. Introspect. Take care.